Greetings. Today I'd like to talk to you about the most important characteristic that we have, which is free will. Free will is what we are and what makes up our very lives. I'm not going to try to give you a technical explanation because we all really know what it is. We all are very aware of it. We know that animals are governed by instinct with their free will, but we also know that that human beings with a higher form of free will are governed by self-interest. It happens to be what we are and what makes up our very lives. We know that the characteristics that we have of free will makes us who we are. One of the reasons why it affects our lives, it affects our knowledge, it affects our learning, it affects our jobs that we do, it affects the mates that we have, our potential mates, our potential jobs, our future, how we decide that we want to deal with our future and how we want to proceed in our lives. It affects actually everything that we do. We know that free will is one of the characteristics that makes us who we are. My personality and your personality exude free will, and our free will makes us do the things really that we do. We can also control that free will. If we decide to tell a joke, an inappropriate joke at the wrong time, we make a decision whether we either will do it or we won't do it. That is free will. So we have the decisions that we can make in our lives that deal with the conduct of our lives. There are problems with free will that we don't really understand, I think, to the point we know that free will is what governs everything we do. For instance, it governs our government. Our government is in charge of their own lives, but they also are in charge of their particular parties. We know that parties, political parties, are governed by the self-interest of their particular party. But we also know that that churches are governed by the self-interest of their church and their church doctrines and beliefs. But there is no cohesion amongst any of the churches or amongst the political parties. Free will, when it's governed by humility, is a characteristic that becomes more what God is requiring of us and what God wants. We need our free will to make us who we are and to make us what we are. We know that our society cannot survive without the proper use of free will. So what God wants us to learn, and indeed we are learning that from our personal experiences, is the fact that free will must be controlled. We have a lifetime of experience that is giving us that knowledge of what we need to control our free will. We control our free will because of past experiences. If those experiences have been bad, then we learn not to do those. So what God is doing for us now is He wants perfect people in His kingdom, and He wants people governed by their free will, but also by humility and loyalty. So if He's going to have perfect people and not robots, we need to learn to control our free will. This life is a learning experience and not a qualifying experience. So free will is extremely important in that learning experience. So as we proceed through our lives, we know that life is extremely important. God has devoted His existence to our lives, and God wants us to enjoy a perfect society in His kingdom, but He also wants us to go through the hardships we need now in order to learn those what not to do in His kingdom. So we are learning now what the characteristics of free will are and the lack of control. So anyhow, I have a book that it's my first book, and it's extremely important. It has a chapter in there about free will. It also has a chapter about humility. It also has a chapter about the prodigal son. It has a chapter about a conversation between God and Christ that makes actually a political makes a point about what God is doing and it kind of lays out a general plan. Also, there is a chapter in there about the plan. So anyhow, this book is on Amazon.com, and you can find it there. So anyhow, thank you very much for listening, and I hope that that this little talk on free will has been helpful, and that you understand a little more clearly how extremely important it is to our lives. Thanks for listening.